YouTube, Dave here again. I've been reading through a lot of my older D&D books lately, specifically the Rule Cyclopedia, but also a little bit of first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, just based off of getting the Unearthed Arcana book in lieu of my D&D Rule Cyclopedia when I asked for a replacement. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But one of the things that I've been kind of talking with to people about in the comments, or hearing sort of their responses to, especially after I did my hand-to-hand combat demonstration with the D&D Rule Cyclopedia, was that there's people out there that really like the old initiative system better than the current one. And it kind of got me thinking, because Wizards of the Coast did release something referred to as the Greyhawk initiative system as one of their Unearthed Arcana articles a while back. And I remember at the time, I just thought it was really ridiculous, and I didn't like it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And wow, my opinions on that have really, really changed. One of the things that I really found myself liking was the initiative system in the D&D Rule Cyclopedia, which has the two sides rolling their initiatives each turn, and basically the combat would typically go in phases. Now, this is not what that is, so if you're looking for that exact kind of initiative system, then it's not in this article. But this article does remind me, though, a little bit more of my second edition AD&D experiences, and I kind of want to talk a little bit more about this system because I actually think it's kind of interesting, and I wouldn't mind trying it out at some point in the near future. So the way that initiative works now is at the beginning of combat, each player rolls a d20 and adds their dexterity modifier plus any other relevant bonuses that they might get to initiative. For example, like a bard's jack of all trades actually adds half their proficiency bonus to their initiative. Things along those lines. But you only roll initiative once, and then it's the same order every single turn until the combat's over. So you always know that the fighter's going before the the wizard, or the monster's going to go before the cleric, or something along those lines. And it's okay, and it's fine for like having things go like kind of smoothly, and for the interest of trying to get the combat to go quickly. But it's still kind of it's still one of those things that you kind of have to suspend disbelief when you're doing that kind of system, because in a real combat scenario, you're not going to have everybody operating in the same order of like actions, or getting their stuff in all at the same times, or before the same person every single time. So what this system does is it replaces that with an initiative system where you're rolling initiative every single round. And the initiative, instead of going highest to lowest, actually goes lowest to highest. And what I actually kind of like about this, that I think is really cool, is, again, it kind of mixes things up a little bit. And I know as a DM, I've been kind of guilty of getting complacent with the initiative orders. And sometimes, you just kind of go on autopilot. And when say your monster goes, and one of your characters, the player characters, would go after that, and that player character uses a reaction and does something, then it just kind of triggers in your mind that, okay, well, he just did something, so move on to the person after him. And I've done that a few times, and I hate that it happens, but it's just one of those things that I think is kind of easy to do. But with this system, the initiative is changing every round, so I think you're paying closer and closer attention to the initiative order. Now, mistakes can definitely happen, and I'm not going to say that this is going to eliminate that, but I think it reduces the chances that you just kind of go on autopilot when it comes to going through and doing the turns. And anyway, so what's interesting is that when you're rolling initiative, the types of actions that you want to take in a round dictate what dice and how many dice that you roll. So if you're just looking to do a ranged attack, you roll a d4. If you're looking to move, you roll a d6. You also roll a d6 if you want to swap any items out, like sheath a weapon and draw something else out, or if you want to take any other action, like, say, a bonus action. So you have to be kind of aware of what you're doing before you roll initiative that round. And if you don't declare that you're using a bonus action, then you can't do it that round, sort of thing. So it's a bit more strategic, and you have to think a little bit more. If you're making a melee weapon attack, then you roll a d8, and if you're casting a spell, you roll a d10. And for me, that's kind of interesting because, again, I'm just kind of more familiar right now with the Rule Cyclopedia, where spells actually take place before melee combat. But in this one, the spell casting dice is the highest dice that you would roll. Now, if you want to do multiple things, like say you want to move and then make a melee attack, you're actually rolling both of those dice together and adding the results. So you would roll a d6 for movement, and then you would roll a d8 for your melee attack. And so let's just say you roll, 4 on the d6 and you roll a 7 on the d8, then you're going on initiative count 11, which is, going to be near the end of the round most likely. Or if you wanted to move and cast a spell, it could be, even higher. There's a few optional rules or things that are thrown in here as well. For example, if you don't like the idea of just the d4 or the d8 for the weapons, you think it's a little too generic, then you can do weapon speed by basically what this recommends is rolling the damage dice that the weapon deals to determine what the initiative order is. So like if you're swinging with the greatsword, you're rolling 2d6 instead of rolling a single d8. And things along those lines. So that's, a cool thing to keep in mind as well. For any spells that would be in effect until the end of your next action, they actually will last until the end of the next round, because with this system, you could go last for, in this round and go first in the next, which makes some of those things that last until the end of your next turn kind of weak. So this kind of gets around that. So you cast a spell this round, it lasts normally until the end of your next turn. It instead will last until the end of the following round. So just another thing to sort of keep in mind there. And you can also delay, just change like your order and stuff like that. So again, I actually really like this system more and more. The more that I look at it, the more that I actually really like it. Now, there's a few things that you have to sort of keep in mind when it comes to using the Greyhawk initiative if you want to use that. Number one, if you're running D&D Adventurers League, you can't because it's not an official rule. But if you're running this, there needs to be a lot of honesty when it comes to the DM choosing the monster's actions as well as the players just deciding what they want to do at the beginning of a round. So now let's just say the combat kind of goes on and they decide that, they weren't planning on using a bonus action, but now they kind of want to use a bonus action. What I would do is let them actually just be able to do that, but have them roll a d6 at that point and add it to whatever their number is. So it's going to delay them further. And that kind of represents them observing the fight going on around them and reassessing what they plan to do. Now, if they want to drop an action, then I would probably just say, you still go on your normal initiative. But I think there's a lot of cool stuff that you can kind of, I think it would make a lot of fun to actually try this out. And I wouldn't mind doing just a home game, even if it's just like a one-off where I actually use this system. But the players have to know what they're going to do beforehand, and which means that I think this is going to work better with a group of experienced players. Because if you're running with mostly beginners, they're probably not going to know what they want to do until their turn comes up. So if you got beginners in your group, stick to the regular initiative system and slowly kind of introduce the idea of this to them. But if you got some veteran players that are used to like AD&D or Rule Cyclopedia, 2nd edition AD&D, then, and you're just not a fan of the current initiative system, then check this out. And I'll try to remember to include a link to the article in the description below, because again, I think this is actually something that's really starting to grow on me. Because looking back at some of these older systems, I thought the combats feel more dynamic and interesting, and I think it's kind of more fun to explain some of the things that happen, like when you have a character that goes at the end of one round and they make a weapon attack and they or they go first and they make this weapon attack and they stumble so badly, like they miss by such a large margin, and let's just say the next round that whoever they were attacking gets to go again before them. It's like they're so overbalanced that this person actually gets a couple of attacks in. So I really like the system, but as a dungeon master, you really do have to be straightforward with what you're doing. In that if you plan on having your monsters move and attack, then you need to be rolling both of those dice honestly and recording the proper results. just because it's not fair to, be able to say, well, now I'm going to have him go here because I don't want him to die before he gets his action, kind of thing. So again, just you don't have to declare to the players what you're doing, but you do have to kind of think about each round tactically and have a plan for what you're going to do, and honestly stick to it. So don't try to cheat. I know it's tempting, but don't try to cheat. Be honest about it, and just roll the proper dice and try to have fun. So anyway, that's the Greyhawk initiative system. There's probably a little bit more stuff that you can go into in terms of detail. So if you have any other questions about it, feel free to let me or to ask in the comments, and I will be more than happy to give the best explanations that I can. And again, if you weren't aware of this option and you wanted something different than sort of the bland initiative system that we've had since 3rd edition, then this is a really interesting alternative. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video, hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Funding for this channel is provided by my awesome supporters over on Patreon. So everyone who has donated to that, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Even $1 a month helps immensely, and without your guys' support, this channel would not be possible. I want to provide special thanks to Kennedy S., David L., Will W., Michael L., The Twisted Tentacle Inn, and Roll Stats for their generous donations. Thank you again to everyone who's contributed, and all of you make this possible.